Rapid development of an LMS system in K2 ERP without artificial intelligence. Hello. In this video, we will show a very important thing. How in K2 ERP you can quickly design a full-fledged online learning system, an LMS, starting not with programming, not with chaotic code writing, not with dozens of technical files, but with the correct database structure. And this is fundamental, because any serious business system does not begin with a beautiful button, not with a form, not with a menu, and not even with design. It begins with a data model. If the data model is well thought out, the system develops quickly, logically, and at scale. If the data model is poorly designed, then rework begins. Chaos begins. Entities are duplicated. Logical errors appear. Changes become complicated, and constant problems arise during product development. That is why in K2 ERP we pay so much attention to ER models. Today we will create the structure of an online learning system. It can be an LMS for an educational institution, a corporate learning system for an enterprise, a training platform for accountants, managers, programmers, business analysts, partners, dealers, or clients. But the main point is that we will show not just an abstract scheme. We will show the K2 ERP approach to rapid development of business applications. And there is an important point. This video is intentionally recorded without using artificial intelligence. Why? Because it is important for us to show programmers, analysts, and future K2 ERP developers exactly how an application is created in the system. Not by magic, not randomly, not by pressing a button and something appears, but consistently, clearly, and structurally. We will show how a developer who has only just started working with K2 ERP can move from a technical specification to a database structure, from the database structure to ORM, and then to a ready application with menus, directories, documents, relationships, forms, and business logic. This is one of the key ideas of K2 ERP, to speed up the development of business systems, not by 10 to 20%, but by several times. We start with the technical specification. In front of us is a description of an online learning system. We see the general goal, to create a system that makes it possible to organize courses, learning programs, sections, lessons, tests, practical assignments, checkpoints, learning groups, student progress, certificates, diplomas, and control over learning completion. In other words, this is not about a simple list of video lessons. We are creating the foundation of a serious LMS system that can operate inside an enterprise, an educational institution, or a public educational platform. In such a system, it is important to provide user roles. There are students, there are teachers, there are curators, there are administrators, there are course authors, there are reviewers of practical assignments, there are managers who monitor employee training, there are business owners who need analytics. Who is learning, who is falling behind, who is missing deadlines, who has received a certificate, and who has not passed testing. And all of this must not be in a separate isolated service, but in a single K2 ERP environment. This is exactly where the power of the ERP approach becomes visible. Learning is not separated from the enterprise. It can be connected to a position, department, group of employees, regulations, documents, CRM, HR, projects, production, warehouse, accounting, and business processes. K2 ERP allows you to build not just an LMS. K2 ERP allows you to build learning as part of an enterprise management system. Now we move into the K2 ERP system. We open K2 Builders, the rapid application development environment. This is where components, ER models, data structures, entities, fields, relationships, and the foundation of the future application are created. We go to the IR/ER Systems section and create a new component. We name it K2 Learning. This is the future online learning module. Next, we specify the component code. At this stage, the code can be conditional. It can be changed later. The main thing is that we have created a separate component where all the logic of the learning system will be placed. After creating the component, we move to the ER model diagram. There is a blank canvas in front of us. And this is a very important moment. We are not opening an empty code editor. We are not chaotically creating tables in the database by hand. We are not starting with dozens of migrations. We are visually designing the system. This allows us to discuss the model with the team, analysts, consultants, future users, teachers, methodologists, accountants, managers, and programmers. The model is visible to the eye. You can immediately see where the course is, where the program is, where the section is, where the test is, where the question is, where the answer is, where the practical assignment is, where the group is, and where the student progress is. This is not just a technical tool. It is a method of collaborative business system design. We start with the basic entities. The K2 ERP system already has users. Therefore, we create or connect the K2 users entity. These are the system users. They can be students, teachers, curators, course authors, administrators, reviewers, and managers. We create the key field, user ID, the user identifier. We mark it as a mandatory primary key. Next, we create user roles, K2 roles. Roles are needed so that the system understands who can do what. One user can be a student, another can be a teacher, a third can be a curator, a fourth can be an administrator. And in real life, the same user can perform several roles. This is very important for corporate learning. For example, a department head can simultaneously take one course as a student, act as a curator for their employees, and view analytics for the department. A teacher can create a course, review practical assignments, and conduct online classes. An administrator can manage the structure of learning programs, groups, certificates, and access rights. That is why roles are not a formality. They are the foundation of security and access management. Next, we create one of the main LMS entities, courses. A course is the basic unit of learning. In the system, a course can have a title, short description, full description, level, status, author, teacher, curator, duration, mandatory flag, public flag, certificate, diploma, minimum progress for completion, minimum score, creation date, update date, publication date, and archive date. Why so many fields? Because a real course is not just a video. A course has a life cycle. First, it is created. Then it is prepared. Then it can be published. Then it can be assigned to specific groups or employees. Then it can be archived. Then it can be updated, expanded, republished, or replaced with a new version. In K2 ERP, we immediately build in the possibility of proper course management. The course title is needed for display in the system. The short description is needed for lists, course cards, and catalogs. The full description is needed for the course page, where you can explain the learning goal, program, outcomes, requirements, and target audience. The status is needed to distinguish a draft course from an active course from an archived one, and a service course from a published one. The course author is the user who created the course. The teacher is the person who conducts the learning. The curator is the person who supports students, monitors progress, answers questions, and reminds them about deadlines. And here we see an important advantage of the ER model. All these fields are linked to users. The author, teacher, and curator are not just text in a field. They are references to real K2 ERP system users. This means that later we can build access rights, analytics, notifications, tasks, reminders, action history, and responsibility. Next, we create the course duration field in hours. This is needed for learning planning. If a course lasts 12 hours, it can be divided into a week, 2 weeks, or a month. If the course is short, it can be completed in 1 day. We add a flag indicating whether the course is mandatory. In corporate learning, this is critical. For example, a safety course may be mandatory. A CRM training course may be mandatory for managers. A WMS course may be mandatory for warehouse employees. An accounting course may be mandatory for the finance department. Next, we add a public visibility flag. A course can be open to all users or available only to a specific group. This makes it possible to build both a public academy and an internal corporate university. We add certificate and diploma flags. After completing a short course, a student can receive a certificate. After completing a large learning program, a diploma. This is important for motivation, HR, qualification confirmation, partner programs, customer training, and work with educational institutions. Next, we add minimum progress and minimum score. This means that a course cannot simply be opened and closed. The system must understand when the course has actually been completed. For example, the student must complete at least 90% of the materials and score at least 80 points. This is no longer a video hosting platform. This is a learning control system. After courses, we create the course tree. Why do we need a tree? Because there may be many courses. There can be directions, accounting, warehouse, CRM, production, HR, programming, business analytics, administration, management accounting, taxes, reporting, document management. There can be course groups, basic level, intermediate level, professional level, course for beginners, course for partners, course for teachers. The tree allows courses to be organized not simply as a list, but structurally. We create the course tree entity. In it, we provide a parent node, a course reference, title, node type, sort order, nesting level, path, status, group flag, creation date, and update date. The parent node allows us to build a hierarchy. If the parent ID is empty, it is the root of the tree. If the parent ID is specified, it is a child node. The course reference can be filled in if the node corresponds to a specific course. If the course reference is empty, the node can be a group or a section of the tree. This is very flexible. You can create a structure like accounting, accounting basics, tax accounting, payroll and HR, regulated reporting, programming, Python for K2 ERP, TypeScript for K2 ERP, ER models, BP models, API business, CRM, sales, task management, management accounting, analytics. Such a tree gives the user clear navigation, and administrators receive a flexible tool for managing the learning catalog. Next, we create learning programs. A learning program is a set of courses that together form a complete educational path. For example, the course K2 ERP Basics can be a separate course. But the learning program K2 ERP Accountant can include dozens of courses: directories, primary documents, warehouse, bank, cash desk, payroll, taxes, reporting, management accounting. The learning program K2 ERP Developer can include ER models, ORM, Python, TypeScript, API, business processes, reports, dashboards, testing, and working with Git. The learning program Sales Manager can include CRM, leads, deals, customers, commercial offers, tasks, email, Telegram CRM, and sales analytics. Therefore, we create the learning programs entity. It contains a title, description, status, author, diploma flag, minimum score for receiving a diploma, creation date, and update date. But a program by itself does not yet contain courses. For this, we need a junction table between the program and courses. We create the Program Courses entity. It connects learning programs with courses. It contains a program reference, course completion order, and a flag indicating whether the course is mandatory within the program. This is very important, because the same program can include mandatory and optional courses. For example, in a program for an accountant, accounting, tax accounting, and payroll may be mandatory, and a CRM course may be optional. In a program for a developer, ER models, ORM, and the basic K2 ERP architecture may be mandatory, and a course on integrations may be optional or advanced. Thus, K2 Learning allows you to build not just a set of courses, but full educational trajectories. Next, we move to course sections. A course should not be monolithic. It must be divided into logical blocks. We create the course sections entity. Each section has a course reference, title, description, order, status, creation date, and update date. For example, the course Creating an LMS in K2 ERP can have the following sections: Introduction to LMS, Designing the ER model, Creating courses, Creating learning programs, creating sections, creating learning elements, automatic tests, practical assignments, learning groups, student progress, certificates and diplomas, analytics and reports. Each section has an order. This makes it possible to manage the sequence of learning. And this is important. In K2 ERP, we immediately build in not only data storage, but also learning flow logic. After sections, we create course learning elements. These are the specific units of educational content. A learning element can be a video, text, test, practical assignment, file, link, presentation, instruction, webinar, conference recording, or interactive action. We create the course learning elements entity. In it, we provide a section reference, title, description, element type, content URL, content file, duration in minutes, order, mandatory flag, status, creation date, and update date. And here again we see the power of a correct model. One section can contain many learning elements. Each element can have its own type. The system can understand that a video must be watched, text must be read, a test must be passed, and a practical assignment must be submitted. This creates the foundation for real learning control. If an element is mandatory, the section cannot be completed without it. If an element has a duration, the learning workload can be calculated. If an element has a status, it can be published, hidden, archived, or updated. All of this is created in the ER model, and then K2 ERP can automatically generate structures for working with this data. Next, we create checkpoints. A checkpoint is an intermediate verification of student progress. For example, after the first section, the student must pass a short test. After the second section, they must submit a practical assignment. After the third section, they must reach a certain progress percentage. Before the final exam, all mandatory elements must be completed. We create the checkpoints entity. In it, we provide a relationship with the course, a relationship with the course element, a relationship with the course section, title, verification type, minimum score, minimum progress percentage, a flag indicating whether it blocks moving forward, creation date, and update date. A particularly important field is whether it blocks continuation. If the checkpoint is blocking, the student cannot move forward until the condition is met. For example, it is not possible to proceed to a practical assignment if the theoretical test has not been passed. It is not possible to receive a certificate if all checkpoints have not been completed. It is not possible to finish the course if the minimum score has not been achieved. This is important for serious learning, because in many systems, online courses turn into a formality: open, scroll, close, receive a certificate. K2 Learning allows you to build control as part of the system. Next, we create automatic tests. A test is one of the most important tools for checking knowledge. We create the learning quiz entity. It contains a relationship with the learning element, title, description, time limit, maximum number of attempts, minimum passing score, question shuffle flag, answer shuffle flag, flag for showing correct answers after completion, status, creation date, and update date. This makes it possible to create different testing scenarios. A test can be a training test with an unlimited number of attempts and showing correct answers. A test can be a control test with a limited number of attempts and without showing answers. A test can be final with a time limit, minimum score, and blocking of repeated completion. Shuffling questions and answers is needed for fairer completion, especially if there are many students. Next, we create the quiz questions entity. Each question belongs to a test. It has question text, question type, number of points, explanation, image, order, creation date, and update date. Question types can be different: one correct answer, multiple correct answers, text answer, matching, sequencing, image selection, and so on. After that, we create the answers entity. Each answer belongs to a question. It has answer text, correctness flag, explanation, order, creation date, and update date. Thus, we obtain a complete structure for automatic testing. A test consists of questions. Questions consist of answers. Answers can be correct or incorrect. Questions have points. The test has a minimum passing score. The system can automatically check the result. This is already a full foundation for an LMS. But not all learning can be checked with tests. Therefore, next we create practical assignments. A practical assignment is a task that a student completes independently and submits for review to a teacher or curator. For example, in a K2 ERP development course, a practical assignment may be the creation of their own ER model. In an accounting course, it may be the creation of a primary document or posting an operation. In a WMS course, it may be configuring a goods receiving route. In a CRM course, it may be creating a sales funnel. In an HR course, it may be describing a job description or employee training plan. We create the practical assignments entity. It contains a relationship with the learning element, title, description, instruction, maximum score, minimum score, maximum number of attempts, deadline in days, file attachment requirement flag, status, creation date, and update date. This makes it possible to build practical learning, not just theory. The deadline field is especially important. In corporate learning, deadlines matter. An employee must complete training by a certain date. If they have not completed the assignment, the curator must see it. If the deadline is approaching, the system must send a notification. If the deadline is overdue, the manager must receive a signal. This is what distinguishes a serious LMS from a simple video library. Next, we create practical assignment submissions, because a practical assignment is a template. A submission is a specific attempt by a specific student to complete that assignment. We create the practical assignment submissions entity. It contains a relationship with the assignment, a relationship with the student, attempt number, answer text, file, status, assigned score, submission date, and review date. This allows the system to store the history of attempts. A student can submit an assignment once. They can receive comments. They can revise it. They can resubmit it. The system stores which attempt it is, when it was submitted, what exactly was attached, what the review status is, and what score was assigned. This is important for transparency. Next, we create manual reviews. A manual review is the result of checking an assignment submission by a teacher or curator. It contains a relationship with the submission, a relationship with the reviewer, score, comment, verdict, and review date. This allows not just assigning a score, but also giving feedback. For example, the assignment was completed correctly, but the field descriptions need better formatting. The ER model is logical, but there is no relationship between the course and the program. The test was created, but there is no minimum passing score. The assignment is not accepted. The structure of the learning elements must be revised. This approach creates real learning, not an imitation of an educational process. Next, we move to learning groups. In an LMS, it is important to teach not only individual users, but also groups. A group can be a student group. A group can be corporate. A group can be formed by department. A group can be formed by position. A group can be formed for partners or customers. First, we create the learning group tree. Why a tree? Because groups can be organized according to the structure of an enterprise, educational institution, or educational direction. For example, company, sales department, accounting, warehouse, production, HR, IT, or training center, accountant's course, developer's course, business analyst's course, manager's course. The group tree has a parent node, title, order, level, path, status, creation date, and update date. Next, we create the learning groups themselves. A group has a relationship with the tree node, title, curator, teacher, start date, end date, maximum number of students, status, creation date, and update date. This makes it possible to manage learning streams. For example, you can create the group Accountants, July 2026, or K2 ERP Python Developers, Stream 1. Or Sales Managers, CRM Training. Or Warehouse, WMS Training. Or K2 ERP Partners, Basic Course. A teacher, curator, start date, end date, and student limit can be assigned to each group. Next, we create a junction table between the group and students. This is the Students in Groups entity. It records who belongs to the group, from what date, when they left the group, and what status the student has in the group. Why is this a separate table? Because one student can be in many groups. One group can contain many students. A student can be enrolled in a group, then leave, then be transferred to another group. The history must be stored. Next, we create a junction table between the group and courses. This is Group Courses. It determines which courses are assigned to a specific group, in what order, from what date, until what date, whether the course is mandatory, and when it was assigned. This is important for corporate learning. For example, the group New Managers can be assigned the following courses: Introduction to the Company, CRM, Sales, Commercial Offers, Document Management, Reporting. The Warehouse group can be assigned WMS, Goods Receiving, Transfers, Inventory, Mobile Data Collection Devices, Serial Numbers. The Accounting group can be assigned Accounting, Tax Accounting, Bank and Cash Desk, Payroll, Reporting, Period Closing. And all of this will be part of the unified K2 ERP system. Next, we create Student Progress. This is one of the most important entities in an LMS, because it is not enough to create courses. You need to see how people are completing them. We create the Student Progress entity. It tracks the progress of each student for each element, section, or course. It contains a relationship with the student, course element, course section, status, progress percentage, score, time in minutes, start date, completion date, and update date. This allows the system to answer practical questions. Who started the course? Who completed the course? Who got stuck on a certain section? Who failed the test? Who did not submit the practical assignment? Who spent too little time learning? Who is learning actively? Who is ignoring learning? Who fulfilled all certificate requirements? Who is missing deadlines? And this already becomes the basis for dashboards, reports, notifications, ratings, automatic reminders, and management decisions. In K2 ERP, such data can be combined with HR, CRM, tasks, projects, job descriptions, and business processes. For example, you can see that a manager did not meet the sales plan and did not complete the CRM course, or that a warehouse employee makes mistakes in documents and has not completed WMS training, or that a new accountant has not yet completed the tax accounting course, but is already working with documents. This is not just learning. This is enterprise work quality management. Next, we create test attempts. Storing only the test result is not enough. The attempt history is needed. We create the test attempts entity. It records each student attempt to complete a test. It contains a relationship with the test, a relationship with the student, attempt number, attempt score, maximum possible score, status, start date, completion date, and time spent in minutes. This allows us to analyze not only the fact of completion, but also student behavior. How many attempts were needed? Did the result improve? How much time did the student spend? Did they pass the test too quickly? Did they finish the test? Did they quit halfway? Did they reach the minimum score? This data is important for teachers, curators, and managers. Next, we can create job descriptions and position-based learning. This is a very important part of corporate learning, because in real business, learning is often connected not just to a course, but to a position. For example, an accountant must know accounting, taxes, payroll, and reporting. A sales manager must know CRM, commercial offers, and customer interaction. A warehouse worker must know WMS, mobile data collection devices, inventory, and serial numbers. HR must know HR processes, onboarding, and personnel evaluation. A manager must know management reports, dashboards, tasks, and KPIs. Therefore, an LMS in K2 ERP can become not just a learning platform, but a competency management system. A job description can be connected to learning courses. A position can have mandatory learning programs. An employee can automatically receive courses after being assigned to a position. A manager can see who is ready for work and who has not yet completed the training. This is already the level of a corporate university inside ERP. Now it is important to understand what we have actually done. We have not simply drawn a few tables. We have created the foundation of a full-fledged LMS system. This model contains users. It contains roles. It contains courses. It contains a course tree. It contains learning programs. It contains relationships between programs and courses. It contains course sections. It contains learning elements. It contains checkpoints. It contains automatic tests. It contains questions. It contains answers. It contains practical assignments. It contains practical assignment submissions. It contains manual reviews. It contains a group tree. It contains learning groups. It contains students in groups. It contains group courses. It contains student progress. It contains test attempts. It contains the foundation for job descriptions and position-based learning. And all of this is created in the Visual ER Model Editor of K2 ERP. This is the key difference between ordinary development and development in K2 ERP. In the traditional approach, a programmer spends a long time creating the structure, writing migrations, creating ORMs separately, forms separately, menus separately, relationships separately, validations separately, and documentation separately. In K2 ERP, the approach is different. First, we design the model. Then the system can create ORM based on it. Then, the application structure. Then, menus, directories, documents, and basic forms. Then, the developer refines the business logic, interface, scenarios, reports, and dashboards. This radically speeds up the creation of business applications. And now, let us imagine the practical result. A company wants to create a system for employee training. In the traditional approach, this may be a separate service, separate users, separate passwords, separate data, separate reports, and separate integrations. But in K2 ERP, learning becomes part of the unified enterprise system. The employee is already an ERP user. Their position already exists in HR. Their department already exists in the company structure. Their tasks may already exist in K2 projects. Their documents may be in VDoc. Their communications may be in K2 chat. Their work may be connected to CRM, WMS, production, finance, and accounting. And learning is connected to this ecosystem. This means that training can be launched automatically during onboarding. Courses can be assigned when a position changes. Learning can be monitored by department. Learning results can be linked to work quality. You can see who is ready to perform processes and who is not. You can generate certificates and diplomas. You can build employee ratings. You can see the team's weak points. This is not just an LMS. This is learning as part of business management. For educational institutions, K2 Learning also opens great opportunities. You can create courses for students. You can organize learning programs. You can manage groups. You can control completion of materials. You can create automatic tests. You can assign practical tasks. You can review work. You can issue certificates. You can give students practical work inside a real ERP system. And this is especially important for Ukraine, because the country needs specialists who know how to work not only with outdated systems, but with modern Ukrainian software. K2 ERP is being created as a Ukrainian alternative to Russian 1C, BAS, and other outdated solutions. And learning is one of the key directions in replacing these systems. Because simply creating an ERP is not enough. Accountants must be trained. Programmers must be trained. Business analysts must be trained. Managers must be trained. Teachers must be trained. Students must be trained. Partners must be trained. Business must be trained. That is why K2 Learning is a strategic module. For programmers, this video is also important because it shows that development in K2 ERP begins with the right way of thinking. You do not need to immediately rush into writing code. You do not need to create chaos in the database. You do not need to do everything by eye. You need to understand the subject area. You need to read the technical specification. You need to identify the entities. You need to understand the relationships. You need to think through the fields. You need to define the keys. You need to create the ER model. You need to check its logic. And only then move on to generating the application and writing business logic. This discipline's development. K2 ERP does not simply provide tools. K2 ERP forms the correct approach to creating business systems. For business owners, this video shows something else. It shows that K2 ERP is not just a ready-made accounting system. It is a platform on which new modules can be created quickly. Today, we are creating an LMS. Tomorrow, using the same principle, you can create a request management system. The day after tomorrow, a service maintenance module. Then, a rental module. Then, a production control module. Then, an industry-specific solution for medicine, logistics, education, trade, construction, or agriculture. And this is the key advantage of K2 ERP. Business should not wait for years until a software vendor eventually adds the required functionality. Business should receive a platform that makes it possible to quickly model, create, change, and develop its own processes. That is why K2 ERP is not just a replacement for 1C or BAS. It is a tool for transitioning Ukrainian business to its own modern, flexible, and scalable ERP platform. Pay attention. We are creating an online learning system, but in reality, we are demonstrating much more. We are demonstrating the principle of functionality absorption. Any system consists of entities, relationships, processes, access rights, forms, documents, reports, and analytics. If we can quickly describe the model, we can quickly create the foundation of the system. This is how K2 ERP can absorb the functionality of outdated products. Not by blindly copying them, not by repeating their mistakes, not by dragging old architecture behind it, but by taking the subject area, describing it through a modern model, and creating a new, high-quality product. This is very important for migration from 1C, BAS, and other systems. Business does not need just the same 1C, but different. Business needs a modern ERP that can take the data, reproduce the necessary functionality, and then continue developing faster, more openly, and more securely. After the ER model is created, the next step may be ORM generation. ORM allows working with data at the object level instead of manually writing every SQL query. Then an application can be created. Menus, directories, forms, documents, and relationships. And this already provides a huge time saving. Because in classic development, a lot of time is spent on repetitive actions. Create a table, create a model, create a form, create a list, create an edit page, create relationships, create basic save logic, create validations. In K2 ERP, a significant part of this can be automated. The developer does not waste time on routine work. The developer focuses on business logic. This increases development speed, quality, and scalability. Another important point is visual discussion. When the ER model is visible on the screen, it can be shown to the team. A business analyst can say, "Here we are missing a relationship between the program and the diploma." A teacher can say, "We need not only tests, but also practical assignments." HR can say, "We need position-based learning." A manager can say, "I need employee ratings." A programmer can say, "It would be better to make a junction table here." An architect can say, "This entity should be split." A tester can say, "A status and change date are needed here." This is normal team development. K2 ERP makes it possible not to hide the architecture in one programmer's head, but to make it visible to the team. And that is why this video is useful for different audiences. For programmers, it is an example of rapid development. For business analysts, it is an example of turning a technical specification into a data model. For managers, it is a demonstration of the platform's capabilities. For educational institutions, it is an example of a modern approach to ERP training. For partners, it is a signal that they can create their own industry solutions on K2 ERP. For clients, it is proof that the system is developing not in words, but with real tools. Let us summarize. In this video, we are creating the ER model of the K2 Learning online learning system. We start with the technical specification. We identify the main entities. We create users and roles. We create courses, the course tree, and learning programs. We add sections, learning elements, and checkpoints. We create automatic tests, questions, and answers. We add practical assignments, submissions, and manual reviews. We create learning groups, students in groups, and group courses. We add student progress and test attempts. We lay the foundation for position-based learning, certificates, diplomas, ratings, and analytics. And most importantly, we do this in the visual ER model editor of K2 ERP. This shows how K2 ERP makes it possible to quickly move from an idea to the structure of a future application. K2 ERP is a Ukrainian ERP system created to replace 1C, BAS, and other outdated and dangerous solutions. But K2 ERP is not only accounting, not only warehouse, not only CRM, not only production, not only payroll, not only document management. K2 ERP is a platform for creating business systems. And today, using LMS as an example, we see how this platform works. We can create modules quickly. We can model data visually. We can generate the foundation of an application. We can scale solutions. We can train programmers to work with the system. We can involve educational institutions. We can create a Ukrainian ERP development ecosystem. This is not just a technical video. This is a demonstration of how Ukraine can create its own software, train specialists on it, replace hostile products, and form new technological independence. If you are a business representative, look at K2 ERP as an opportunity to move from 1C or BAS to a modern Ukrainian system. If you are a programmer, look at K2 ERP as a platform where you can quickly create applied business solutions. If you are an educational institution, look at K2 ERP as a real tool for teaching students modern ERP systems. If you are an accountant, manager, business analyst, or executive, look at K2 ERP as a system that can become the new foundation of enterprise management. K2 ERP is not being created to become just another program on the market. K2 ERP is being created to replace hundreds of thousands of copies of outdated and hostile software in Ukraine. And to do it not with slogans, but with a product. Not with promises, but with architecture. Not with presentations, but with real modules. Not with dependence, but with our own Ukrainian platform. In the next videos, we will be able to show how ORM is created based on this ER model, how the application is formed, how menus, directories, documents, and forms appear, how business logic is connected, how reports, dashboards, tests, certificates, and learning scenarios are built. And now, the main thing to remember is this: rapid development begins with the right model. The right model begins with understanding the subject area. And K2 ERP provides the tools that allow this understanding to be transformed into a real working application. K2 ERP is a Ukrainian ERP platform for business, education, developers, and the country. Switch to K2 ERP. Learn in K2 ERP. Develop in K2 ERP. Create your own modules in K2 ERP. Ukrainian business must work on Ukrainian software. K2 ERP is not just an alternative, it is the next step.